All right. Welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, I want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. Question came in, and whatever, common question that comes up, and all good questions deserve to be repeated. And that is the question about social media. That someone asked that on Facebook they advertised their business and they got negative feedback. Now, question is, does the person, let's say whatever it is, they something negative is said, against them, let's say on their page or not on their page, or they commented on something and someone commented negative against them. Whatever the case is here, the case was they got negative feedback. The business page. So they got negative feedback. And the question was, what do they do? Right? What should they do? Should they respond? Right? Should they not respond? Right? What would be the obvious problem? Obvious problem is definite issue of Lashon Hara, right? Which we'll see in a second. So the question is, how do I go forward? Should I reply? Should I just say thank you, even though it's negative? Now, in this case, it wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. They, let's say they made a decision, and they made a bad decision. So now, really, that had nothing to do with you. They bought something, it wasn't, really what they wanted. Okay, but they looked into it, they made the mistake. Right? They made the mistake. So the question is, should a person say anything? Should they say anything in such a case? Which I can understand. Why you'd want clarity. You get this negativity out. Why you'd want clarity? I mean, you could say, listen, it's your own fault. I didn't tell you to buy this. You bought it. It's your choice. Nothing wrong with the product. The product is a good product. Okay, but maybe it's not good for you. Okay, but you chose it. So they gave them negative feedback. Now, then they say, well, I don't want to add fuel to the fire. Right? Question is, how do you respond? So social media in general, we mentioned a number of times, almost no matter what a person can say can be used against you. I think, if someone puts something out there, you want the information to be squeaky clean, then no one should be able to say anything. You put out information. Now, there always could be detractors. 100% there could be detractors. You could say, I made it as innocent as possible. Okay? Now, if you're telling the truth, right, let's say about Torah, I get this a lot also. People will put things out there and they get hammered. Hammered by leftists, get hammered by other people. But what they're saying is 100% true. Now, there will be people that say, well, I need to defend God every single time. In other words, they put something out there, nothing wrong with what they put out there, and they get hammered. Is that desecration of God's name? No, you didn't do anything wrong. Now, you want to try and bring the person closer, you want to try and answer. I'm not saying the person necessarily can't, but what's going to happen? I would say probably 95% of the time. Eventually, it's going to lead to Lashon Hara. That's what's going to lead to. You're never going to come out squeaky clean over here. Now, if a person says, well, I'm going to be so careful, and I'm going to put something out, and no one is going to be able to say anything in a negative way. So, the information person wants to put out there, you got to be careful, because someone can come and say whatever, then the person put it out there gets offended, and then let's say it's about Torah and they feel they have to defend God, Lashon Hara offense. Right? Remember, there are more than 30 prohibitions when a person speaks Lashon Hara against someone else, where it's forbidden. So if that's the case, you put something, the problem is, on social media, you put something out there and someone gets offended, and it becomes Lashon Hara, you can't do tshuva for that. It's an impossibility to do tshuva. Why? Very simple, because you don't know who it's affecting over here. You could put out, and I see this before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, or more before Yom Kippur, people will say, well, if I've offended anyone, I want to apologize, whatever. What's the problem? You don't know who you offended over here. You put out a post, tens of thousands of people could see it, hundreds of people could see it. You have no idea. You have absolutely no idea. Right? So, if someone over here gets offended, and in fact it's Lashon Hara, what are you going to do? You can't repent for such a thing. In no possible way. Now, imagine, we'll just make it a little more graphic. Imagine, you got more than 30 prohibitions. Let's say in this case it's forbidden. You got 30 prohibitions in one shot. Multiply that, how many people potentially could see it? That's going to offset the amount of mitzvahs the person does in a day. Potential. Person will be in the minus. Maybe forever. Don't know. Depends how bad it is. So social media, a person has to be extremely careful. Now, in this case, the person got negative feedback. So I'll say like this. Always good to answer a question with another question. What happens? You bought a product. You bought a product from someone else and you got shafted. It was a bad, it's a bad product. Right? 100% it's a bad product. Now, you have to give negative feedback. If you give negative feedback, you could be 100% telling the truth. So that should be Lashon Hara. Now, there are a number of conditions over here. Let's say this person's misrepresenting something that it's not. They're claiming X, Y, and Z, and it's not true. Because you got shafted over here. You bought it, and it wasn't as advertised. It didn't do what they said it would do. Question is, are you allowed to put a negative comment there? Now, part of the issue would be, maybe it's okay because A, there's the benefit. What we call it toelet, there's the benefit. Right? You're warning other people. But again, there are other conditions that have to be met. Some people say, well, if this person, causes damage, well, I can't report him to the police. That's a problem. It's Lashon Hara, I can't do that. But the person's a menace. If the person's a menace, you don't have to worry about any of these things. You turn them in. But again, you have to know the facts are true. It can't be just hearsay. You can't change the information. You have to give it over as it is. There are a number of factors. A number of factors over here. But to warn somebody, definitely to warn someone that what they're saying isn't true, and they're misrepresenting, and they're taking people's money, they shouldn't be allowed to do because what they're doing is misrepresentation. Why can't you warn anybody? Should be allowed to warn people. But the question is, giving negative feedback opens up a whole Pandora's box. It's a huge problem. Main problem is Lashon Hara. So in this case, they got negative feedback. Now, they could say, thank you very much, and just leave it. Don't even address it. Just say thanks for the feedback. Or don't even bother. All right, well, sorry, the other side, there are three options. One option is you answer, you say thank you very much, and that's it. Right? Second thing is you don't answer. Third answer is you defend yourself. You defend what happened. Now, the person says at the end, but I don't want to fuel the fire. Oh, very good. Very good. You don't want to fuel the fire because that's what it's going to do. Murphy Stein's law over here is that you're going to say something. You're going to say something's going to make it worse. And you can be 100% justified. You can say it's not my fault. You bought it. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. You don't like it. Whatever the case is. You didn't misrepresent anything. You didn't do anything wrong. Now, I would say maybe it makes more sense to answer because why? Because you want to have a good name. You know, you don't want to get negative feedback. You know, certainly if someone's on Amazon, you get negative feedback, that's not going to be good. 100% is not going to be good. Because then no one's going to buy a product. So you want to try and make sure you don't get negative feedback. At the same time, you know, I could also say, whatever you're going to answer is really not going to matter. This person's upset. This person's upset. They didn't get what they thought they were getting. But that's not your fault. You sold them something that works 100%. They didn't look into it as, you know, the way they should have. And now they're stuck with this thing. Right, really, you know. You can say, fine, I'll take it back. I'll refund your money. You're not happy with it. But they don't really have to do that. It's not an issue with the product, like the product doesn't work. They thought it was something or whatever it was that it wasn't. That's not your fault. But if someone wanted to go beyond the letter of the law, then I could hear. Then I could hear say, listen, you know, I'm sorry this happened. Totally sorry this happened. You know, it must be very frustrating, very aggravating, you know, etc. I mean, what happened, you know, I'll take it back. If you're able to take it back, you'll take a loss over here, right? Question is, how far does it have to go? So there are times, you know, when it comes to business, person may have to go beyond the letter of the law. Even though you really don't have to. In this case, you don't have to. So I was giving over yesterday, I was up north learning the laws of rabbinic court judges. And there's a case that someone's an expert. Let's say the rabbinical court judge that he's an absolute expert, and the two litigants accept this person to do judgment, and he makes a mistake. He makes a mistake in the judgment. Now the question is, what did he make a mistake in? Did he make a mistake in something that was explicit? He missed, let's say, an explicit piece of Talmud, a Gemara, a Mishnah. Or did he make a mistake in something where there was a difference of opinion between rabbinic authorities? He went according to one, but really the halacha is like the other. Right? So in that case, sorry, let's say the first case. First case, he made a mistake in something explicit. So what should we think the halacha would be? He's got to pay. He blew it. He made a mistake. So he's got to pay. Now what happens? Let's say Ruvain owes Shimon $100. So Ruvain gives over the $100 because this rabbinic court judge, he said you got to pay it. You owe the money. But the reality is he made a mistake. And really, Reuben doesn't owe the money. Now, what happens? Shimon left town. Shimon's not around. Or Shimon's a mafioso. You can't get the money out of him. You won't be able to get the money out of him. So what do? So really, the case is, if he's an expert, he makes such a mistake, really he's exempt. He doesn't have to pay. But if he could get the money back, he should. Right? He should, if possible, but he can't. Right? So the later commentaries ask the question, What about going beyond the letter of the law? What about lifnei mishur sadin? Does he have an obligation to go according to the letter of the law, go beyond the letter of the law? So what's the answer? Difference of opinion. There's a difference of opinion. According to some, he's really exempt. The rabbi said he's exempt in any case. You're going to say, but it's not fair. Right? But he's an expert over here. So some commentaries say, you know why I made a mistake, even though he's a world-class expert? Because they didn't give over the information right. The litigants messed up over here, not the judge. Right? You're going to say, come on, isn't everybody fallible? Nobody's perfect. Nobody's claiming everybody's perfect here, right? That this person's perfect. But in such a case, 99% of the time, before he's going to give over whatever Jewish law says, he's not going to make a mistake. So if he made a mistake, okay, you lost out. The person may say it's not fair. Why? He lose out. Okay, it's special compensation, right? Special this compensation for the fact that he's an expert. But what's the point? What's the point over here? The point is there's a question whether beyond the letter of the law he should have to return it or not. So some would say you should return it anyway. It could be the litigants didn't give over the right information. That's how I made a mistake. So really, it's not his fault anyway. You can say, but we're all making peace. What about peace over here? This litigant's rip-roaring back. Why? Because now he lost out. But you see, there's another factor. I mean, there are a lot of factors in this case. It's extremely complicated. I'm just cutting to the chase a little bit because it depends on the case. But in this case, we're going to make it very easy. These two litigants accepted whatever this rabbinic court judge says goes. But he made a mistake and something egregious. So according to Jewish law, we still cut him some slack. We're still going to cut him some slack. But the question is, beyond the letter of the law, does he have to go or not? So some say absolutely not. I made a mistake, whatever. It was an egregious mistake. He still doesn't have to. Others would say, yeah, it's a good thing he should. We don't hold that way. Right? I mean, you still have to further investigate a few things, but it seems to come out that even beyond the letter of the law, he doesn't have to. He's got no obligation. Now, in this case, I'm not going to say it's so similar, but I'm just pointing out, does this person have to go beyond the letter of the law? They sold a product. Person looked into it. They wanted it. They bought it. And now they say, well, I really bought the wrong thing. Right? So old Coffman say, you're tough luck. You bought the wrong thing. What does that have to do with me? The product is a good product. You misjudged. That had nothing to do with me. But now what's the problem? The problem is you made a mistake. Whoever it is made a mistake. And once they made the mistake, what happens? In the meantime, they're upset. And then they give you negative feedback. So it comes to eBay. It comes to, Amazon. You don't want bad feedback. Because then it's harder to sell things. So the question is, how far do you have to go here? Certainly according to the law, according to Torah law and rabbinic law, no obligation, none. You sold the product works, product's viable, not an issue. Someone came along, they thought it was something else, they made a mistake. What does that have to do with you? But you say, but this is now causing me damage. Right? This is going to cause me damage. Because now I got a negative, I got a negative view over here. I have a negative comment. Nobody wants negative feedback. So you say, listen, if you get normally 100% good feedback or high 90s, okay. Should I worry about it? I don't know. It's not your fault. No, you can try and bend over backwards. Some people may do in business and say, say that, okay, I'll return it. I don't have to, but I'll return it. I mean, you have to tell them, they say, fine, I'll return it. Remember, my father used to be in the parking business. Stole a bunch of parking lots, one big garage in Boston. And he was in business with my uncle, with his brother and his father. My uncle always would say, I used to work there sometimes, he would always say, whatever happens, customer's always right. You don't argue with customers. That was his motto. You don't argue. Doesn't matter if they're wrong. You don't argue with them. Why? Because they're feeding you. That was his motto. So, does a person have to hold that? Not necessarily. If they're, upset and this and that, has nothing to do with you. I have to bend over backwards. I have no obligation over here. None. You might tell me beyond the letter of the law, it's a good thing. Maybe. But I would say, you can answer this up. You can answer this person and say, listen, you bought it willingly, knowing what you were buying, and it didn't fit whatever you wanted. Well, that has nothing to do with the product. You misjudged it. They're going to be nice. You got to thank them. If you're going to do this, you would thank them for their feedback. Just so you should know there's nothing defective in the product. I understand, you're very upset, and this and that, and you can leave it at that. But if a person says, listen, fine, I have no problem. I'll return it. I'll take the loss. Just to get rid of this negative comment. Now, the question is, do you have an obligation to do so? Remember, a lot of the laws when it comes to damages, in general, are Torah prohibitions. Most are Torah prohibitions. We don't mess with Torah prohibitions. Not saying you should mess with rabbinic prohibitions, right? But a person's in business, they have to know what the halachas are. You didn't misrepresent over here. You said exactly what it was. The person made their own mistake. Now, in business, someone made their own mistake. What does that have to do with me? I didn't tell them. I didn't tell them to buy it. They bought it. They made their own mistake. So I would say in this case, I don't have to go beyond the letter of the law. Why would you? If you want to, you could. You don't have to. Over it. The problem is you got this negative comment. Now, I would say if you're going to try and answer this comment, you probably, they'll probably get even angrier. Right? The Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, as it says in ethics of our fathers, you never speak to someone when they're angry. It's good advice. Anyone's ever been angry, try and deal with them, reason with them, it doesn't go. They're not going to listen. You have to wait till they calm down. Right? And if you don't wait till they calm down, they're still yelling and screaming, they're going on and on and on. What's going to happen? Nothing. Not going to get anywhere. So, the rabbi is extremely wise over here. Someone who's angry, you can test this out. Try and answer them. Forget it. They won't hear it. Be impossible for them to hear. Impossible for them to hear. So, we'll answer up over here and say, the person says, I don't want to fuel the fire. I don't want to create an atmosphere. I'm not sure how to, you're not sure what to do. So I would say, if you try and answer up and say you didn't do anything wrong, I'm saying in a nice way, that'll add fuel to the fire. Now, you could say, I didn't do anything to deserve this negative comment. True. I would say, if you want to try and fix it, forget about trying to answer the person. Say, I understand your pain. I understand you made a mistake. Even though it has nothing to do with me, I'm more than happy to refund your money, and I'll take it back. Now, does somebody have to do that according to the Torah? No. It's going beyond the letter of the law. They don't have to. If it's that important to them, because they want to get rid of this negative comments, and they say, okay, I'll bite the bullet and I'll do it even though I'm right, they can do that. Right? But we have to keep in mind one thing. Some people get stuck on the truth. Some people get stuck and say, and it works like this. And it works like this in a marriage. That a person, either spouse, doesn't matter who, they can be 100% right. And they can say, but I'm right. And you're right, and they could be 100% right. But even if they're 100% right and they won the argument, in the end they lost. Because then they just destroyed their spouse. They just knocked them down. Even if the spouse admits, that they were wrong, they just had it rammed down their throat. Nobody wants to hear that. Not from anybody, not from someone close, not from someone far away. So I would say sometimes, even if you're right, it's not worth it. It's not worth it over here. Because you're going to lose. Just because you're right, you lose in other ways. So again, I'm not saying you have to go beyond the letter of the law here. They're in the right, right? If what they're telling me is true, then 100% they're right. I have to worry about this negative comment. I have to go beyond the letter of the law. No, you don't have to. You feel bad, you get a negative comment. I get it. Right? So you can take the high road and say, okay, let them say what they want and move on. Or you can also take the higher road, and say, I feel your pain. I understand what happened. I'll refund your money. I'll take it back. Now they're going to lose over here, right? They're going to lose money here. Understood. But even if they're going to lose money, even though they're right, they can say, I'm right. They can walk away. Not answer, not say anything. 100%. They'd be 100% justified to walk away, not say anything. But they're right. If they do say something, they say, listen, you bought it knowing fully well what you were getting. I didn't do anything wrong over here. Now, what are they saying? I'm right. And I want you to admit I'm right. Right? I want you to admit I'm right. That's going to add fuel to the fire. They don't want to hear that you're right. They don't want to hear they made the mistake. Now, it could be you could empathize and not give them their money back. That you could do. And just leave it. Or you can take it further. You can empathize and give them their money back. But you're not obligated to. Now, if a person wants to get rid of this negative comment, you might want to do that. I'm not saying you have to. But if you just answer up without empathizing, knowing that you're right, which in this case you are, let's just say. So you're 100% right. That's not going to help them. They're going to get more angry. They don't want to hear they're wrong. They don't want to hear they made the mistake. And they went against Coffman's 614th commandment of don't be stupid. They did it to themselves. What do you want from me? I have to go beyond the letter of the law because you were a fool? Well, what does that have to do with me? So people handle it in different ways. One way I would tell you not to handle it is trying to answer them. Because if someone's angry, trying to answer them, they're going to get more angry. You let it sit for a few days, let them calm down. Maybe it's not going to work. You answer them, then they hammer you back. Right? Then there's this bantering going back and forth. And most likely it's going to lose the Lashon Hara. So that's probably not worth it, as they say. I don't want to add fuel to the fire. I get it. That's probably what you're going to do. Even though it's not your fault. Totally not your fault. Right? So there are a number of choices. Either empathize, give them the money back. Empathize, don't give them the money back. But whatever you do, don't fuel the fire. Because anything that happens in social media, I can promise you, 9.9 times out of 10, person makes a comment, seemingly an innocent comment, a truthful comment, and they get hammered. And they get hammered. And what does that hammering lead to? Lashon Hara, all over. All over. And that you cannot repent for. Let's keep that in mind. Because the damage is so widespread. It's so widespread. The only way, if a person spoke Lashon Hara against someone else, the only way you get atonement is you have to appease the person. You have to ask them for forgiveness. What's the problem over here? There could be 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 people that you cannot get their atonement. So then what? Then what means you're stuck? And then you spoke Lashon Hara, all the repentance in the world not going to help you in this case. It's one of the dangers of social media. I mean, there are plenty of others, but that's one. So basically what's going to happen is, so you're going to say, how's this going to work out in heaven? So every day a person does mitzvahs, great, do tens of thousands of mitzvahs, but also every day you're accumulating a lot more transgressions because of this Lashon Hara multiplied by infinity. So all the mitzvahs you're doing are just trying to offset the negative. It's kind of like being $1 billion in debt. Being $1 billion in debt. So great, I made $50. So now you're 999 million, 909, $950 million in debt. All right, made another 100. So okay, knock that off. Now multiply by another 1,000 that you're in debt. Right? You never get out of it. Seemingly, you never get out of it. Because, when it comes to Lashon Hara, more than 30 prohibitions in one shot. That's a pretty scary thing. So every time someone, you spoke Lashon Hara, etc., you got one, okay, so let's say you got 35, 270, 3, 105. I mean, do the math. 10,000 people, let's say. You end up speaking Lashon Hara about that. You don't even know who they are, right? 10,000 times 35, 35,000 right there. It could be 1 million. It could be 10 million. But the problem is you don't know who they are. And again, I see this a lot. People will say, well, if I've offended anyone, how does that help you? How does that help you on social media? It doesn't help you. Maybe a few people down the line, they say, oh, this person wants to apologize. I accept the apology. Great. And 999,995, he didn't know about, or if he did know about, they don't accept it. So it doesn't help. You can fast on Yom Kippur the next 50 years. You can fast 3 times a week. They're not going to help you. Because it's a sin between man and man. That's how severe it is. Any sin between man and man, Yom Kippur, fasting, all the repentance, not going to help. If you have an obligation to ask for repentance. Ask for atonement. So if that's the case, what's the problem? Can't repent over here for such a thing. You don't get atonement. It's the worst thing, not knowing who you spoke against. You can't even, there's no way to get atonement for such a thing. You can say, I feel bad, I have remorse, I'll never do it again. You go through all the proper channels of repentance. Not going to help because it's between man and man. Right? You have to ask someone for forgiveness if you've done something wrong. If not, a problem. Somebody asks, based on that, let's say herbal medicine works on some, don't work on others. Is there a money back guarantee? If they say it doesn't work, they give you a money back guarantee. So you get a money back guarantee. You can say, well, it didn't work on me. They say, well, it may work, it may not work. Now they cover themselves. If they say, listen, if it doesn't work, we'll give you money back guarantee. Okay. If they say at the outset that people with certain conditions, this may not work, and then you come back and say it didn't work, what are you going to answer? What are they going to answer? Didn't you read the package? You read the package, right? What did the package say? It said it may not work, so they cover themselves. They don't have to give you money back on that. If it causes other, let's say, a person takes medicine, there's always a whole list of side effects. And you go out a side effect not mentioned. Oh, then you're going to have an issue. But if they say, listen, you take this pill, it's going to cause nausea, it can cause headaches, cause high blood pressure, cause this. And let's say you get 1 out of the 4. You're not coming back and they want my money back. You go to the doctor, start screaming at him and say, hey, you gave me this medication. Look what happened. It caused me headaches. They said, yeah, is that one of the side effects? You don't have a claim over here. If it was a side effect they didn't claim, and it's kind of like what's the case? What would you call it? It's an exception to the rule. That might be a different issue. But if it says clear on the box and in the instructions, this may cause this, that, or may not, clear up this or that, you got no claim. How can you make a claim? It says it may not work in this case. But what happens if they say it won't work in this case? We'll still give you money back guarantee. Because 99% of the time it does work, okay? So you can ask for money back guarantee. There is a problem. Somebody, let's say they buy something without any intention of really keeping it. In other words, they buy it, they use it, and they say they have a week to return it. They're not happy with it, they can return it. Now, what would some people do? Some people may buy it knowing 100% they're not interested in keeping it, but they wanted to wear it a bunch of times. Let's say, it's clothing. They end up wearing it a bunch of times. They say, yeah, I don't like it. They return it. But they never had intention to really buy it. It's also wrong. Right? It's like walking into a store in a certain way and you're bantering back and forth with a salesperson without ever intention of ever buying. That you're not allowed to do. Right? Someone comes up to you and say, can I help you? And you really have no intention of buying anything, and I'm just looking. You have to be honest. Because if they think they got a potential customer, so you're misleading them. That you're not allowed to do. Right? It's also a Torah prohibition. You can't mislead somebody. You have to be honest. If you're walking in the store, you're just browsing. Just say I'm browsing. Listen, if you're really interested and you're thinking of really buying it, you don't end up buying it in the end. That's one thing. But at least you had an intention you were thinking of buying. But if you never had intention of buying, you're misleading the people there. That you're not allowed to do either. It would also be forbidden. So the question is, would money back guarantee work? Yeah, sure it would. But you had to have intention to buy it. And if they don't, if they make a claim and they say it may not work for this, that, and the other thing, even though they give a money back guarantee, right? Maybe I would say you can't get a money back guarantee because they already told you it may not work. But see, that's probably not how it works. They'll probably give you money back. It doesn't matter. They'll say, well, I had this and then clear it up. So they give you money back. But, what could the company claim? The company could easily claim, I think you need to get glasses and read what it says. It's not even in fine print. It's there, bold letters. Right? So you want your money back. But they said it may not work for this. Now, if they would give you your money back anyway, okay. Question is the person allowed to? So if they give you your money back in any case, then you're allowed to take it. Then you're allowed to get your money back. A little bit, as the English would say, it's a little bit dodgy here. I would say it's a little bit dodgy because just because they say it's money back guarantee, but they say explicitly that it may not help you with this, that, and the other thing. So it may not help. But if they're going to give the money, they're going to give it to you back anyway. They're going to give you the money back anyway. then really you shouldn't have to worry about it because that's their policy. Question is, morally, should a person do it? So you're going to say, if it's a loophole, or sorry, if that's what they do, then that's what they do. I have to be more holy. Why do I have to be more holy? They're willing to give it back to me. Give me the money back. Right? But obviously, they're selling you an item. They're not expecting you to use the item on condition they're going to get the money back anyway, just to use it. That's forbidden. Right? 100% that's forbidden. Because you never have any intention to buy it. You have negative intention over here. If, you really wanted it and then you didn't like it or whatever, okay. But if you did it at the outset thinking, I'm never going to take this thing, I'm going to use it for a number of days or a week, I got a week to return it, I'll return it before it expires, fine. Before the time to return it expires, fine. Right? That you can't do. Right? That would be forbidden. Yeah, someone mentioned, good case. You have gas mileage devices, do nothing, they're gimmicks, a useless device because of high gas. Yeah, that's a problem. That's misrepresentation. They'll tell you if you add this or you add that, you get more mileage. Nah. Maybe yes, maybe no, but it could be tremendously misleading. True? True. Listen, if they guarantee it, I could, he could say, listen, it didn't work. But that's your word against theirs. They don't know. They don't know how much mileage you went on. Right? But yeah, there are a lot of gimmicks. There are a lot of things people use as gimmicks. Now, I would think most people are aware of that. Maybe they think it's not going to happen to me. Maybe they think other things, but most people are going to be skeptical. If something makes a claim, it's 100% of the time it's going to do this, that, and the other thing. When you buy it doesn't do that, you got a good claim. But they also can suck you in with advertising. Someone asks, oh, good question. How does it apply to online entertainers? People overseas interact with thousands of millions. That's kind of a problem. First of all, I don't think these people are on the up and up anyway. Right? Probably a bunch of drug addicts and other things. But okay, if you get a product, get millions of good reviews. Right? Even a small portion of reviews is bad. It's still good. Right? Right? It could be. You're still getting thousands of bad reviews. So someone asks, isn't better to give a refund or help to create a good experience? Yeah, probably is. But the point is, you don't have to. Why would it make good business sense to do it? To get rid of these negative reviews. Right? Because you want to have a good reputation. You want to have a good reputation. You don't want people to say, oh, he did this, he did that. I won't even give money back. Whatever. They give a bad review. Yeah, it's good to have a good reputation. Now, does that mean, every single time I'm going to have to take a loss? Depends what you want to do over here. I think when it comes to business, most people, I would think, want to have a good reputation. That way, people will tell them about their products, and the people will buy the products. All you need is one pretty nasty negative review, and that could destroy everything. But how far does the person have to go? So there are people out there, unscrupulous people. They'll lie, they'll cheat, they'll connive. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. They'll say, we'll get people anyway. We're not going to lose out. And if we do, it's not going to be that much. There are people out there totally unscrupulous. But I would think someone who's got a moral compass would want to do things on the up and up. That's what they would want to do. Because they want to have a good reputation. So wouldn't it make sense? Someone asked, wouldn't it make sense to give refunds, create a good experience? Yeah, it would. The question is how far you have to go. I'm saying according to the letter of the law, you certainly don't have to. You certainly don't have to. In this case, why'd you have to return it? This person is an idiot. They bought something, they knew what they were buying. They should have looked into it further. It's their loss. You can easily say that. Right? You don't want to necessarily say that in business because you lose business. I definitely agree. But who says I have to refund it? I don't know, why should I have to refund it over here? You'll say it's good for business. My uncle said, customer's always right. You never argue with the customer. Yeah, I remember once someone came in and said, wow, so expensive to park here. I didn't want to own the space. I just wanted to park here. So I said tongue in cheek, whatever. I was a teenager. So I said tongue in cheek that I don't know. Maybe the owner has to send his kid to college. Maybe it's true. It's a true statement, right? But that was my uncle's motto. You don't argue, because you want to have a good reputation, right? In that business, my father, my uncle, they had stellar reputation. Even though people, might have thought they charged too much, whatever the case was. But, that's how a person should do their business. A, honestly, and B, with good customer service. You treat them the way they need to be treated. And beyond. Because you want people to keep coming. You don't want, you do whatever you can. You bend over backwards to make the customer happy. Now, it could be crazy things. Depends how far it goes. But yeah, if you get all these negative reviews, that's going to be a problem. That's never going to be a problem. The question is how to deal with that. We spoke about. Yeah, it's also true. And I meant, and if you were to give a review, and let's say it's a negative review, which is problematic in of itself. But yeah, person gives a strong negative review, you destroy that potential. Right? And you have that in all kinds of things. You have a lot of good reviews, might have some negative reviews. So you have to be able to wade through and see, and even if you see negative reviews and you decide you still want to buy it anyway, that's true. But yeah, in this case, a person's statement could destroy the other person. 100%. 100% could destroy the other person. Someone asks the Lashon Hara, if someone asks you a question, let's say, is homosexuality okay? That's not Lashon Hara. 100%. Torah says forbidden. Right? Torah says, Leviticus chapter 18, homosexuality is forbidden. And they could say that's homophobic, that's this, that's that. Is that Lashon Hara? It's not Lashon Hara. You can tell me Lashon Hara can be something that's true. This is exactly what the Torah says. I don't have to worry about that. And what if they go and destroy your reputation online? Well, guess what? You get nothing to worry about. You get zero to worry about. Right? He said many times, all the people said negative things against him. He said he's got a huge portion in Olam Haba. So let them talk. Let them go eat kugel. Let them say what they want. Because if you stand up for Torah, you don't lose. You don't lose. But what if they destroy your reputation? Doesn't matter. God's going to come and help you in other ways. And it could be you had to get destroyed for different reasons. Maybe you had it coming anyway. Right? But that's not, if a person stands up for Torah, this happened to me a number of times. You stand up for Torah and people make comments, oh, that's antiquated and God's a loser, God forbid, if you really think, I heard somebody say, you really think God's going to punish such a person because they have these desires? Yeah, I do. If someone says that, they're a heretic. They're an absolute heretic. Okay, if they're a rabbi or not. You really think because, they have this inclination, this very strong inclination. Come on, you really think God's going to zap them? Yeah, I do. Because God doesn't want you to act on it. It's forbidden. If a person gets bashed for it, let them bash you. You can sit there and argue. Good luck trying to argue with the LGBT community. Good luck. They'll work very hard to undermine anything you do. Lie, other things. There are no scruples over here. because they want to show what they're doing is right. Oh, you're going to say it's not? Oh, so you're anti-gay, you're anti-this, and they say all these things about it. Let them talk. Because whatever mitzvahs they do, you get their mitzvahs. Says the Ovos Chavovos. And duties of the heart. A friend of mine would say, you really want their mitzvahs? You get all their mitzvahs. Let them say whatever they want. You stick up for Torahs on Lashon Hara. Or someone once said to me, about intermarriage. They said, oh, that's your opinion. I go, no, that's actually what the Torah says. And what the commentaries say more than 3,000 years ago. I don't like that, and that's, it's anti-women, and it's anti-pig, and it's anti... So now they're speaking against God, blaspheming against the Torah. Do I have to worry about that? No. You're sticking up for the Torah. God will deal with them. Don't worry. God will take care of them. Now, if you say Torah is true, it affects your job. Oh, good example. We'll speak Lashon Hara here, right? Or the case of Lashon Hara. The boss asks you for information, certain information. The information, according to the laws of Lashon Hara, 100% you're not allowed to give over. To Lashon Hara, you can't say it. Boss comes along and says, listen, if you don't give me this information, I'll give you till the end of the day. You don't give me this information, don't bother coming back tomorrow. What's the halacha? Says the Rabbi Chaim and the laws of Lashon Hara say, okay, I'll pack my bags now. Take my coffee cup, this, that, I'm done. You have to lose your job. That's how far it goes. You're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara to save your job. Right? If you're not allowed to say whatever they want you to say, you're not allowed to. Doesn't matter. If your boss asking you that, your Rebbe asking you that, if it's forbidden, it's forbidden. So it would affect your job, right? 100%. Right? And if they say, listen, give me this information, you lose your job, you lose your job. Is that what God wants? Yeah, that's what he wants. Because the laws of Lashon Hara are very severe. More than 30 prohibitions in one shot. If you lose your job, you don't think God can give you another job. God can't take care of your needs. You can say, but it's very hard now. Job market, this, that. You have to lose your job. That's not negotiable. That would be forbidden, right? That would be forbidden not to give it over. Someone asks, do you make a blessing on medicine as a pleasant taste? Difference of opinion among rabbinic authorities. Let's say you took syrup. They had proper rabbinic supervision and tasted good, right? So many rabbinic authorities say I should eat something that has the same category blessing. Let's say shakol, right? You have a drink, or you drink water if you're thirsty, and have in mind to cover the medicine. Right? That's what you would do. Right? But many say, even if it's pleasant tasting, you shouldn't make a blessing. So how do you get out of it? Right? The blessing will be shakol. Eat something that is shakol and have in mind to take care of the medicine. Right? That'll take care of the medicine. One other thing, if a person's reading reviews, let's say about a certain product, and these reviews, let's say they're negative reviews, that's Lashon Hara. So now you can't believe it 100%, but you're allowed to guard yourself. That's what you're allowed to do. You're allowed to guard yourself against it. You're allowed to take, you're allowed to think about it, and that can't influence your decision if it's going to cause you damage. That you're allowed to do. Putting negative things in there, that's a problem. Right? That is definitely a problem. Someone asked, person sees something immoral, it's forbidden to see. You don't look. Can you ask Shem for anything in that moment? Yeah. Even by a non-Jew. I don't know if it applies to a non-Jew necessarily. Right? Maybe, for a Jew. And here's the case about Lashon Hara. Or, about being embarrassed. If someone embarrasses you in public, not only they lose their portion of the world to come, but if you get embarrassed in public and you don't answer, yeah, you can ask for anything you want right there. Does that apply to a non-Jew? I don't think so. Because that's not something that's rational. Not something that necessarily makes sense. right? According to the Torah. That's what I'd say in that. Someone asks, Isaiah 66. Yeah, let me look this up quickly. Isaiah 66. Let's see if I get it here. Yeah, Isaiah 66, 16 to 17. So the Hashem led the judgment with fire, with a sword against all mankind. There are many who will be slain by God. Okay, those who prepare and purify themselves to go to the gardens, go in one group after another. Those who eat the flesh of the swine, that's where it comes in. The abominable creature, and the mouths we consume together the words of Hashem. That's the word of Hashem. Yeah, so the question is, implies all people will be judged. That's what it sounds like. It's everybody. Right? Everybody's going to be judged there. That's what the whole chapter is talking about. Yeah, so the question is, and swine eaters will perish. Yeah, who are swine eaters? Jews that ate pig. Not talking about non-Jews. Non-Jews can eat pig. Not a problem. People may say, well, I don't want to eat, an unclean animal, and pig is really bad, and this and that. Doesn't affect non-Jews like it affects Jews. Non-Jew can eat it. Right? The Kli Yakar says at the beginning of chapter 11, book of Leviticus, a non-Jew is not going to keep any law. There's no benefit for them. And he says, you see, non-Jews eat stuff all the time. Creepy crawly things. Who knows? They eat anything that moves, in some places. It doesn't affect them negatively. Like it does a Jew. You'll tell me science is never proven by a Jew that if he eats something, it's going to affect him in a negative way. It's going to dull his spirit, as the Gemara says. Make them apathetic to Torah mitzvahs. So if that's the case, even though science hasn't proven, it's not the only reason. Not the only reason we keep kosher. Bottom line, doesn't affect a non-Jew. Right? So that can't be talking about a non-Jew. So swine eaters will perish is talking about a Jew. A Jew who ate pig. He's going to perish unless he repents. 100% unless he repents. Someone asked, mistakes of a Jew in training. Yeah, that's sounds familiar. Jew in training made a mistake on blessing. Is the punishment the same? No. Not at all. Why? Because they don't have an obligation. They don't have an obligation to make blessings. If they make blessings, they have to know how to fix it up. Right? The question is a blessing in vain? Is it a blessing in vain? Right? So, seemingly it's not a blessing in vain. Right? It wouldn't be a blessing in vain over here. So therefore, you have to know if you made a mistake, what to do, but it's not a blessing in vain. Right? It's not a blessing in vain over here. Someone says, but there's a third-party service called PayPal, right? That also is deceptive. Just saying it's good to use condition. Yeah. There are things, let's say you buy on eBay, right? Or Amazon or whatever. It's supposed to be, and I've heard a number of cases like this. They get something and they're buying it very cheap, whatever, and it comes, dented or whatever. Right? Obviously you could complain, right? They're saying it's good in used condition. Now, obviously it means it's not destroyed. That would be a total lie. But used condition means there can be wear and tear. Oh, there can be a big dent on the side, whatever. Okay, you understand that. Right. But if it's something you can't use it or it makes it almost unusable, it's a different issue. It doesn't look like the picture. That can happen. But you don't have no complaints over here. Right? You're buying it at, Same thing. I was involved in real estate. You put on a contract. You buy this house as is. In other words, you check it out. You want to bring an inspector, whatever, to check it out, fine. But when you sign that contract and it says you buy as is, what if there's a problem you didn't find? Poltergeist. All of a sudden, it's built on a graveyard. You didn't know that. Right? You buy it as is. According to the law, you got no complaints. I don't think you'd have a complaint over here. But if you did the inspection, the inspector didn't find anything. He said, yeah, it's good, this, that. Not a problem. And then later you find a problem. You agreed to buy it as is. Right? So let's say you bought this at an auction. Right? Or you bought it, as a foreclosure. So you got it very cheap. You're gonna fix it up, or you're gonna flip it to someone else for $1,000 more. Right? So again, buyer has to do due diligence. And if they didn't find the problem, it's not your problem. Question is, do you have to divulge it? Because if you divulge it, you're not going to buy it. Right? Let's say there's a house that's there are certain issues. There are certain issues. Now, you don't necessarily have to reveal everything. Right? Because otherwise, you will have a problem of selling it. Question is, you're not allowed to deceive either. Right? I don't have to say all the flaws. If someone comes and they say, which is a problem here in Israel, in general, that you got a problem with with mold in rooms. Whatever, leaks from above, different issues. A lot of places have the issue. Now, let's say they look around, they don't find any problems. And they don't ask you anything. So I don't necessarily have to reveal it. If they look around and they say, hey, is that mold? Well, you can't lie. I remember, I was in a certain apartment. They're trying to sell the apartment. The entire wall, one wall of a room was all mold. It was all mold. So that's not a problem. Why? Because they're going to see it. Someone comes in and they say, hey, is that mold? Well, it looks like mold. Would the owner be allowed to say, whatever you do, don't say anything about the mold? They're not allowed to say that. They're certainly not allowed to say that. Right? At the same time, I don't have to say anything. In other words, if they look at it, and the whole wall is black from mold, and they say, hey, that looks like mold. Yeah, it does. Well, is it mold? Or what do you think it is? They'll figure it out themselves. And if people see, let's say, in different rooms, a little bit of mold on top, they say, oh, you have a problem with mold? Yeah, there's mold. Do I have to tell them all the flaws? No, I don't. They have to do due diligence also. But if they ask you, have you ever had a problem with this? You have to say yes. You can't lie. You'll tell me it's going to be harder to sell. You're right. You can't lie. You said you're allowed to lie. You're not allowed to lie. Certainly not. Do non-Jews have to guard their eyes? Yes, they do. Because the Torah says you don't have to go after your eyes, after your hearts. Now, I would say, when I say that they have to guard their eyes, I would say it's a moral imperative. It's a good thing, it's a moral imperative. Obligation? No. I wouldn't say it's one of the no-hide laws, but I think it's a good thing to do. Why are there so many different opinions with Jews and non-Jews on sexual things? Well, non-Jews have, there are sexual relationships they're not allowed to have. People they're not allowed to be with. That the Rambam speaks about. What about guarding eyes? Again, what does the non-Jew have to keep? A non-Jew has to keep things that are logical according to the Torah. Now, if you were to ask most people in the world, Jews, secular Jews, if you were to ask them, or non-Jews, doesn't matter. If you were to ask them, for all guys out there, it applies to women also. right? But apply, I think, more to men. And they'll ask, as part of a questionnaire, should a man be allowed, to look at women that are not dressed modestly? What would most people say? Most people would say, let them do whatever they want. That's what they'll say. But deep down, what will they say? Sure, why not? They'll tell you it's healthy. They'll tell you it's healthy. A person got normal desires. Why shouldn't they? But if you were to ask most people in the world, that, in the way of the world, is that an obligation? Is that what people should do? Going to be a very, very high percentage. Huge percentage of people to say, not a problem at all. It's not a problem. If they get excited and this and that, okay, so what? They can do what they want, right? It's their body. They can do what they want. That's normal. That's why we live in a messed up world. They're going to say 100% that's normal. If someone told me, said, listen, if you go to a beach, which is forbidden, but if you go to a mixed beach, we'll keep this clean, and you don't get excited, there's a problem with you. Now, what's the biggest urge that God gave to man? That's the biggest urge. Biggest urge. So God wants you to control it. He wants you to harness it, wants you to use it the right way. So we're not supposed to suppress it, per se. Right? That'd be a Christian thing. We're not supposed to suppress it, we're supposed to use it the right way. So now, and so in the secular world, would they say there's anything wrong with a guy going to the beach? It's going to be, it's a mixed beach, women in bikinis or less? No. They're not going to say it's a problem. And they're going to say if you get excited, there's a problem with you. But that's a normal reaction. 100% is a normal reaction. So we don't normally care what secular society says, but you have to keep in mind. You have to keep in mind over here that, we're obligated. Jews are obligated to guard their eyes. They're obligated to harness sexual activity and use it in the right way. Now, non-Jews, we just said it. Does that make sense according to the Torah? Logically. And for non-Jews, I would say no. They want to go to a mixed beach? Not a problem. They get excited? Not a problem. They spill seed? Oh, that might be a different issue. And that's a major disagreement of opinion among rabbinic authorities, whether non-Jews are obligated in such a thing or not. But again, obligation, I wouldn't say it's a normal thing. Because I grew up in the secular world, everyone say that's normal. There's not a problem with it. Only thing is, the Torah says I can't do it. So I would say by non-Jews, it's a moral imperative, right? There are many say it applies both Jews and non-Jews, many say it don't. But again, why not? Because non-Jews don't have the same obligation. You're right, the consequences are much greater. A non-Jew, if they don't guard their eyes, they're not liable for a death penalty. They're not liable for anything, most likely. Coffman would say it's a moral imperative. It's not a good thing to do. And that a person should work on that. Obligation, according to Noahide laws, I wouldn't go that far. So I wouldn't go that far. But you have to understand, why is there such discrepancy among non-Jews? Because it's not clear in many ways when non-Jews are obligated and they're not. Because when we talk about sexual immorality, it's talking about people non-Jews are not allowed to be with. Who says guarding your eyes comes under that category? For Jews, I understand, because it already says in the Shema, I have to guard my eyes. And I can't go after my heart. Who says that applies to non-Jews? One of the Noahide laws is immorality. How far does that go? Doesn't go that far. Many would say it doesn't go that far. Some would say, okay, if you don't control what you see, it's going to lead to other things. True. And that might be forbidden for non-Jews. True. But who says goes that far? There's a reason there's a difference of opinion, because it's not clear. Totally not clear. And you want to tell me, onanism should be forbidden, right? Spilling seed should be forbidden definitely for a Jew. I can say even for a non-Jew. How do I know? Because Onan wasn't a Jew. Aaron Onan, they weren't Jews. Sons of Yehuda, they weren't Jews. So some will bring a proof from that, doesn't apply. It will apply to them. Others will say that was before the Torah was given. And after the Torah was given, doesn't apply to them. Question is, what applies, what doesn't? But you're going to have to come up with an unbelievable novelty over here, and you're going to tell me, come on, the Torah says you don't have to go after your eyes. Go take a survey. Go to work, take a survey. Ask people. Ask people if that makes sense logically. 99 out of 100, or 100 out of 100 are going to say, just do what you want. What are you worried about? Doesn't affect anyone else, so not a problem. Other people say it's healthy, it's not an issue, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to say it's an issue. I have to be careful what I see. Why? Because of what it might lead to. That's your problem. But I got an obligation because of it. It might lead to this. Guess what? It's what we call a groma. It's causative. It's not something every time someone does this, it's going to lead to that. Certainly not. Person got some level of control. Right? But if you tell me it's absolutely direct and every single time person's going to look at this is going to happen, okay, then you might have an argument. But people say, do what you want. That's what they're going to say. So why would I think it applies to non-Jews? Because you'd have to bring me good proof. Why? What's the boundaries of immorality? How far does immorality go? The Rambam tells me certain relationships are forbidden. Clear-cut forbidden. Mother and a child, incest, different relationships forbidden. But who says I can't look at other things? I can't go to the beach, maybe stare a little bit. Why not? It's not under this category. For Jews, it's an offset of that. Why would I say it's an offset by non-Jews? But there are other things that are not as clear, right? We just brought a good proof that spilling seed for a non-Jew should be forbidden. Because they're known and they weren't Jews. But you see, you don't see by the Torah when the Torah is given, it applies to them afterwards. So you can say maybe it doesn't apply to them. But again, I would say, even if it doesn't, probably not the most healthy way to live. Probably the moral imperative. Right? I did a video on Tanakh talk on that, on no-hide laws and moral imperatives. Yeah, let me see. Someone asked, person went to the bathroom before doing Kiddush Hashem, before washing your hands and making the blessing. How do you say these two blessings? First blessing you would say is blessing for the hands on the Kiddush Hashem, and then you say Asher Yotzim. Then you say the blessing coming out of the bathroom. So someone asked, we can't vet product services through reviews. We can't tell someone about mold. This is complicated. Brother, if you're warning people, some would say if you're warning people that this product is toxic and it's dangerous and this and that, you have an obligation to warn people. You don't have to worry about Lashon Hara. Right? If you're selling a property, let's say, and a person comes to inspect it and they bring an inspector, does that make me obligated to tell everything about the property? You're bringing an inspector, you're checking it out yourself. Oh, there were 2 rooms that had mold on the top. You didn't see it. I have to tell you? Why do I have to tell you? Why do I have to tell somebody? I'm trying to sell the property. I don't have to tell it makes sense why I would have to tell them. You know why? Because if I tell people all the faults, no one's going to buy it. You want to sell it. But someone has to do their due diligence. Anyone buys the property, you get 30 days. right? Let's say you sign a contract. You get 30 days due diligence. You can back out. We get 30 days due diligence. You miss something that I know about. Who says I have to tell you? You can say, but is that honest in business? It has nothing to do with being honest in business. Who says I have to reveal all the terrible things? But what's going to happen if I do it? You'll never buy it. Right? So what's the bottom line? If someone asks you, you have to tell them. But I don't have to reveal it at the outset. Just like in Shidduchim, someone wants to get married to someone else. And that person has let's say the person had cancer and they're in remission. Do you have an obligation to tell them the first date before they go out? No. Because if you find out the first date before they go out, you're not going to go out with them. Now, it has to be revealed. Probably about the third date, fourth date, but you have to see if they're compatible, if they like each other. By the second or third date, they should already tell them. You can't hide that. You're not allowed to hide that. That's forbidden. But who says I have to reveal every nook and cranny of something that's bad if I know that's it's gonna affect me negatively? Who says I have to do that? Someone mentions Hitler Yimach Shmo V'Zichro, may his name be blotted out. The reason for the Holocaust was Jews spread consciousness. Yeah, we're the consciousness of the world. Okay. Isn't that what God's desire is? Yeah. But even if we're the consciousness of the world, we brought absolute morality to the world. And Hitler convinced the masses that, yeah, we deserve to be exterminated because of it. But that's what God wants us to be. Catch-22. It's not a catch-22. The reason it's not a catch-22 is because we probably did other things wrong that we deserved it anyway. Even if we're the conscience of the world, and he stirs it up and he convinces people and murders tens of thousands, millions of people, God forbid. So what? Doesn't matter. We could be liable for 1.5 million different reasons. We have to bring morality to the world. That's what we're here for. Isn't that going to cause other problems down the line? Maybe it will. So what? That doesn't mean I don't have to keep the Torah. So then someone here mentions rape and murder. When a person sees and thinks they're victims of Jews and non-Jews, why would we teach our children this? We should. We should teach morals to our kids through what the Torah says. No question. Right? But if we do that, can it come back to bite us? Who cares? I can't worry about what's going to happen in the future. It doesn't matter. What's going to happen in the future. I have to live my life the way God wants. Period. That's what I have to do. And there might be really negative repercussions. Comes along Haman and all the anti-Semites, Jews or non-Jews, say, look, there's a nation out there. They don't eat your food, right? If you touch their wine, they won't drink it. They'll spill it out, this, that. Telling them the truth. They're not lying. Non-Jew touches wine that's not cooked or pasteurized, can't drink it if it's open. It's true. I call it spiritual cooties. Call it spiritual cooties. Okay, that's true. Is that going to bring the ire of non-Jews or even secular Jews against God and against the Torah and against frum people? Yeah, maybe. But it's true, isn't it? Because like someone asked earlier, how can I say homosexuality is forbidden? It's going to cause other problems. That's Lashon Hara. It's not Lashon Hara. It's what the Torah tells me. Torah is also anti-pig, right? Torah is anti-other things. Okay, but that's what the Torah says. And then people could use it against me. You can't worry about that. We can't worry what's going to be this, that, and the other thing. You got to keep Torah the way it needs to be kept. That's it. Shut up and eat the matzah. That's what you got to do. It could cause other problems. I would agree. It certainly can cause other problems. So what? I still have an obligation to keep it. We definitely have to keep, teach our kids morals. No question. No question about it. In this skewed world, apparently they'll tell the kids one thing. In the schools in the world, they're going to say something else. Imagine 6, 7-year-old, comes home and says, yeah, I just got this great book from the library. It's all about, alternative lifestyles. Parents gonna say, wow, that's great. Educated my kid the way he needs to be educated. Till his mind's open, till his brain falls on the floor. Beautiful. It's nuts. No morality today. There's no integrity today. And even, I stood up for Torah. I lost my job. And I was in South America. Mentioned that story before. My Rebbe told me it's what I have to do. I called something in. I lost my job because of it. And I was stuck in South America. But okay. You may have to give up something because you got to do what God wants. But you don't lose. You might lose in that way, but you don't lose in the bigger scheme of things. You have to have integrity. Unfortunately, a lot of people out there, Orthodox Jews among them don't have integrity. And they lie, and they cheat, and they do other things, and they misrepresent. It's a big problem. I'm not going to say not. It's definitely a big problem. It makes what people do honestly, it makes them look, everyone gets labeled together. I wish more people would have integrity. 100%. Someone asked, Magen David wine kosher? I think it is. Should be. I double check, but probably. We don't have, again, if a person says something, again, something that's totally forbidden in the Torah, I don't have to worry about that. I don't care what the LGBT community says. They'll say, Coffman, you're not politically correct. You're right. I've never been politically correct. And I'll defend whatever the Torah says. You explain to me Leviticus chapter 18 and why it's okay. I'm not going to say it's okay. I'm not going to say intermarriage is okay. You're not going to get me to say, but that's offensive. Okay, so it's offensive. So you're offended. I'd rather look like a fool in this world than look like a fool later. God said, hey, Coffman, how come you didn't defend me? How come you didn't tell him intermarriage wasn't forbidden? What were you afraid of? You got to stand up for Torah. 100% you got to stand up for Torah. And if people say you got to be so open-minded, you got to be this, you got to be that. I don't have to be. Who says I have to be? I don't have to like it. It's too bad. If any way non-Jews can protect their children, keep them out of school. Keep them out of school and try and, which is going to be impossible, keep them as insular as possible. And giving them proper Torah values. Problem is, once you get a smartphone, it's over. Once you're already exposed to that world, it's very hard. Very, very hard to fight again. And that's why I've heard people say, I would never send my kids to public school for this reason. They don't homeschool. For that reason. Because their ideas that are being given to them are nuts. Someone told me, fourth grade, I think, third or fourth grade in Boston, I already started teaching this stuff. That's insanity. 7, 8 years old, you're teaching about alternative lifestyle. It's nuts. Totally nuts. So a person sends their kid to a school like that, they're going to be exposed, way overexposed. Nothing comes good from that. So, the only thing is, you'd have to homeschool. And if you can't homeschool, then you got to try and give them the best values you can. But you're fighting the tide. It's hard. 100%. 100% it's hard. It's all over. Someone says in kindergarten they're teaching this stuff. That's nuts. If you're a boy, how do you know you're really a boy? How do you know you're really a girl? How do you know? That's nuts. Come on, someone 5 years old, 6 years old. Destroy lives. Destroy innocent lives. Why do they have to be exposed at that age? You tell me, okay, they're already teenagers, they're older, different things. Still, you're going to tell me people find out about it anyway. No one's really so insular today. True. That is true, but there's a time and a place. And unfortunately, there are young people that get exposed to things or want to be exposed to certain things, and it comes back to bite them. And if you would ask them, are you better off when you were exposed when you were much younger? No, everyone will admit not. But curiosity killed the cat. That's what happens. So, there's a whole problem. Yeah, there are a lot of, it's a messed up world. There's no question about it. So the question is, this is crazy. Someone here just mentions Magen David is triangle K. If it's triangle K, you shouldn't drink it. Yeah, it's problematic rabbinic supervision. But I'll verify that. But if that is true, then yeah, triangle K should not be used. Why did you circumcise in the desert? First of all, God gave them a command. Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid. Different reasons. That's why he's punished. He almost got killed. In the end, on the way back to Egypt, because even though he thought it was dangerous, to circumcise, God gave him a direct command. Right? Gave him a direct command. Why specifically in the desert? God wanted to see Mesiras Nefesh. Self-sacrifice. Right? Tremendous self-sacrifice over here. So there are things that, I'll give one example. You have before the Jews go out from Egypt, what's the last thing they have to do before they get out? They have to kill a sheep, the Egyptian god, in front of their eyes, and take the blood and dip the blood on the doorpost. And the Jews say, come on, Moshe Rabbeinu, are you serious? They're going to kill us. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, listen, if you don't do it, you don't get out. You're not getting out. Why did God do it? God wanted to see final self-sacrifice. Final self-sacrifice. Someone says, Ezekiel says, people who are uncircumcised of the flesh and heart can't enter the temple. What about non-Jews? Non-Jews could give sacrifice. Right? They're allowed to give non-obligatory sacrifice. So the question is, why not over here? Well, they can't enter the temple, that's true. There's certain places they could enter. Right? So there they were allowed to bring non-obligatory offerings. What we call them in the dove, a free will offering. They're allowed to. Would non-Jews be allowed to sacrifice to the Messianic era? If the temple's rebuilt and there's sacrifices, again, they're not going to be bringing obligatory sacrifices. They want to bring sacrifices they can as a free will sacrifice. That's true, but doesn't mean they're allowed to walk anywhere they want in the temple. Where they're allowed to give this free will sacrifice, they're allowed to be there. Or, some part, wherever it is. Doesn't mean they're allowed to be in every place in the temple, for sure not. Certain places they can't be. Certain places regular Jews can't be. Only Kohanim could be there. Right? But if they want to bring a free will offering, they're allowed to. Definitely allowed to. Certainly in that time and also in the Messianic era. Wow, what interesting questions here. I'm gonna stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Rabbi Chaim Coffman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com. Or you can send me an email at rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com or rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, whichever good. Beginning of the day, end of the day, or almost.